if you haven't looked into Sasquatch experiencers much, there's a few things, threads that you're going to find that are familiar. One is Sasquatches make structures out of wood, and they can look like a human made them, but you'll usually find something within them that will tell you it wasn't a human. For one thing, you'll get a sense about it. But just to give you an example, I have different interactions at different places, or I have had, but this place was a little park by my house, so they can interact with you in a big city. If people don't know that, they're in the green spaces throughout the cities. And this is just a little postage stamp park with large cedar trees in it. And I can't remember when this was, but it was probably a year or two ago. But there was a structure up against a tree, many, many branches that had fallen in the wind that had been all propped up against this tree with an opening like a door. And this is very common. They make these kinds of structures. And I looked at that and I thought, I wonder if kids made it. But it didn't really feel like it. And then when I started to look more closely, there'll be an artistic sort of bent to it. So they'll embellish it with flowers or leaves or other little branches from different places. So this one had blackberry canes. They were fresh blackberry canes, but they had been ripped in half. So if you know blackberry canes at all, they're very, very sturdy. And to rip one in half, they're about an inch maybe thick around, maybe not quite an inch, full of prickles. And so people aren't going to go up with their bare hands and rip these canes. So these ripped canes were woven in and out all the way through the structure. And so I looked at that and I went, okay, the blackberries are across the street. They're not cut. No kid is definitely going to do that. And so then I knew that was definitely a Sasquatch structure. And, you have to use your discernment there. But those are things that they'll do in the 3D to try to get people's attention. So if you're out in the woods or out in your local parks, keep your eye on the ground for glyphs. So maybe you haven't heard of glyphs. And Sherry was the one that mentioned glyphs. So they make stick glyphs on the ground. So they use sticks or rocks or leaves. And again, these can be very beautifully embellished with flowers or whatever. And if you get a female, often they will really embellish those and make them beautiful. So that's sometimes how you can tell the difference. But they're a method of communication, sometimes a method of communication between each other, but sometimes a method of communication with you. And so it's keeping your eyes on the ground for something that's unusual. And these things I know sound very, if you're looking for a more interdimensional type relationship with them, this is a really good place to start, to let them know that you're interested. Also, thinking about them, talking to them. I used to sing to them all the time. And if there are kids involved, they love the singing. So Sasquatch children. And maybe that's something that hasn't been thought about before either. So, yeah, those are just a few ways. They can also drop things inside your house. So it's like they're in another dimension. They can put their hand out into your house from another space and drop something right in. They don't even have to actually be coming right into your house. They don't even need to put an arm out. Sometimes they can just drop it in. So if you find something unusual in your house, I know they like to use stones, marbles, crystals, leaves. Leaves are something they like to use a lot of. But it's going to have a flavor for you. So they're going to tailor your experience to you. Because they can read you. So they're going to know when's best to interact with you, how is best to interact with you. You hear a lot of people talk about, they hear them speaking in their head. That can happen, but they're not often going to do that unless it's important. They don't do anything that, I shouldn't say they don't do anything. They do stuff as a joke. They have great senses of humor and they love to do things to be funny. So there can be that, but they'll be able to read how is best for them to interact with you, whether it is in dream time, whether it is in 3D, whether it is, in the woods, through these structures. And, if you are walking through the woods and you see a glyph or a structure, leave them something by those, because they go back and check. So yeah, if you want to start a gifting place, so maybe we can talk about gifting places a little bit. If you want to start a gifting place, that's a really good way to do it, is to find a structure or find a glyph in the woods or in a park, because that can happen too. The place I connected with them was a wetlands. And find a place that isn't going to be highly visible to other people, so you can go back and check it. And a place that's close to you so you can check it often if that's possible is a good idea. Because what's going to happen is that gifting thing is going to evolve into something different over time. So it's a great way to get started. But we don't want it to stay, I give you this, you give me that. I give you this, you give me that, because what does that mean over time? But it's a great way to get something started so that your ego driver can get past the fact that this is actually happening. So, and I know that's important for us, again, because we're living in 3D. And we need those experiences to crack through that reality. And I'm not going to say we all need them. We don't all need them. But I feel like it's nice to have reassurance that this is real and we're not imagining the whole thing.